Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing with Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 15, verse number 8. Shariram yad avapnoti yachapi utkramat shivaraha grihavaitani samyati vayurgandhani vashayat. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we can see that Krishna is continuing his instructions to Arjuna and wanting to explain to him how every action has a reaction. Generally, people, when something good happens, they think it's because of them. And something bad happens, then they blame the Supreme Lord. But here in this chapter, we can see in the next two verses also, Krishna will say, as you sow, so shall you reap. So depending on our actions, we face reactions, whether they are good or bad. So this verse that we recited just now is talking about transmigration. Now, many people don't believe in transmigration. So my question to them is, if there is no life after death, then please explain to me that when two children are born at the same time in the same hospital on the same day, how come one is born perfect in a rich family and the other one is not so fortunate, maybe is disabled or in a very poor family? Why is that? Is it that the Supreme Lord is very partial? No, it is because based on the past actions, the new body gets the reactions, which means there was a past body. And that means one has left one body and come to another body. So that's transmigration. And Bhagavad Gita explains that our actions lead to our reactions. Now we think that we are Ishvara, we are controllers, but we are only controllers of our own body, which also most of the time we cannot control, because we cannot control aging, we cannot control disease, we cannot control death. So we are not really controllers of even our bodies, but we think we are. So the question is, are we? So here from this verse, we can understand that we have the choice to decide what body do we want in the next life. So based on that, we can perform our actions. If in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, if one leads a life like that of an animal, then definitely is going to get a body of an animal in the next life. So it is up to us. We choose whether we want better bodies or we want to get bodies in lower species of life, lower than the the humans, which is animals, aquatics, insects, whatever it may be. So it is in our hands. We have to choose. That's why the Lord has given us minute independence. And most people, they misuse this minute independence they have. So having got this very rare human form, an intelligent person should think, what should I do during this human life of mine? Should I use my minute independence or misuse my minute independence? Because we are the ones who have decided on this body that we have today. So, for instance, this body that I have today, I placed an order in my previous life based on my actions. I have received this particular body with the particular senses and mind and consciousness. So, we are the cause of our own bodies that we have today. So, in today's verse, Krishna says, we carry our different conceptions of life to the next body. So, whatever my consciousness is in this life, whatever conceptions that I have in this life, I'm going to carry it with me to my next body. Isn't that amazing? And he gives the example of just like the air carries the aroma. Now, the air doesn't have any fragrance as such, right? But when it say passes through a rose garden, it carries the aroma of the rose flowers. So just like that, Krishna is explaining that we are carrying our different conceptions to our next body. So an intelligent person should meditate on what kind of activities do I have to perform and what is my ultimate goal in life? What do I want to achieve just before I leave this body? And Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajat ante kalevaram tam tam evati kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. He says, whatever one thinks of at the time of death, to that state one will achieve without fail. He says, without fail, there's no doubt at all. So now the question arises, what should I think of at the last moment of my life? Obviously, it would be remembering the Supreme Lord if we are interested in going back to the spiritual world, to Krishna's abode. Now, to be able to remember him at the last moment, we need to practice throughout our life. What? Krishna consciousness. We should try to practice the Bhagavad Gita into our lives. We should try to chant every day, read Bhagavad Gita. We should try to associate with devotees, learn from them, and advance spiritually. You see, so it is up to us, because the time of death is very crucial. That will decide what will be our next body. You see, there is a very nice pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam where there was this King Bharat. I'm pretty sure all of you heard about Maharaj Bharat. He was the emperor of the entire planet, not just India, but at that time, the entire planet was called Bharatvarsh, and he was King Bharat. Now, King Bharat was very opulent, very famous, very powerful, you see, and he was also a devotee of the Lord. And he decided that, okay, I have enjoyed the kingdom for quite some time. Now it's time for me to retire, go to the forest, and, spend the rest of my life in Krishna consciousness, in remembering the Lord, in chanting his holy names. So he gave up the kingdom and off he went to the forest. What was his goal in life? To think of Krishna at the time of death, to practice Krishna consciousness. But it so happened that he got attached to a deer, a baby deer. And because the baby deer was alone, the mother had passed away, there was no one to take care of the baby deer. He started taking care of that little animal. And it so happened that he got so engrossed and so attached to the deer, taking care of the deer, that he forgot his ultimate goal in life. He also forgot his chanting. He forgot reading the scriptures. Everything he forgot. His whole focus was the deer. And one day, that baby deer, when grew up a little, went away from Bharat Maharaj. And Bharat Maharaj became very very impatient. He wanted the deer. He was so attached to the deer. He kept looking for deer, calling out to the deer, going here, there, everywhere, couldn't find the deer. And so he was so sad. And at that moment, thinking of the deer, he left the body. He died. And guess what? The next life he got was that of a deer. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Smaran, whatever we think of at the time of death, to that state we will attain. And that is what happened with Bharat Maharaj. Being a king, an emperor of the entire planet, became a deer in the next life. You see, so we decide what do we want to do. If we want to remember Krishna at the time of death and go back to the spiritual world, then we need to practice. And chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a practice that will help us to remember Krishna at the time of death. It's not easy, but it's not difficult either. You see, so if we make, say, for instance, let's take an example of chanting. If we make chanting our habit, just like we eat every day, we sleep every day, we work every day, we take care of the family every day. Similarly, we just need to chant every day. When we make that our habit and, also hear Bhagavad Gita regularly, then what will happen at the time of death? We will carry our Krishna consciousness to the next body. Now, if we are successful in this life, we are able to remember Krishna at the time of death because of our practice, then we go back to the spiritual world. But if we do not, then the same bhakti, the same Krishna consciousness will carry with us to the next body. And guess what? In the next life, we will get another opportunity to practice bhakti yoga. So to be able to even come to that stage of, being conscious of Krishna, first of all, Krishna says we need to come to the mode of goodness. Now, in later chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, we will read, all the different activities in different modes of material nature, like ignorance, passion, and goodness, and how we can transcend and go to the mode of pure goodness. Because only when we are, in the mode of goodness, then that consciousness will go to the next body. But if we practice, if we live our lives in the mode of ignorance or passion, then it'll be very difficult to go back to Godhead. If it is in the mode of ignorance, then Srila Prabhupada explains that if we live like animals, then definitely we will go into the lower species, which is in the animal life. Now, an animal body, when say, supposing a living entity, excuse me, the soul, the living entity in the body has been, living a life like an animal, like, eating whatever, doing whatever actions, etc., living like an animal without any discrimination, then that soul will enter into an animal body. So once that soul is in the animal body, then the animal doesn't face any karma, because animals don't have philosophical intelligence, so karma doesn't affect them. So then what happens to the animal? Then they go through the evolutionary cycle till they come back again into the human form of life. So if we have been, practicing bhakti yoga all our life, then Krishna, out of mercy, he will help us to remember him at the time of death. And then there will be no more birth and death. Then there will be, in the spiritual world is permanent happiness and peace. You see, in the previous verses, we already heard the description of the spiritual world. The spiritual world is a place where there is no electricity. There is no need for electricity, because the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence from the body of the Supreme Lord Krishna, lights up the entire spiritual planet. So we've heard about the spiritual world that Krishna explained, and there in the spiritual world, there is direct association with Krishna over there. But unfortunately, not many people, not many people believe in the Bhagavad Gita or the scriptures or the Vedic literatures. And many times I hear people say, oh, well, there's nothing after death. Everything is finished. No, there is no such thing. Transmigration is a fact. We've learned that, in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 5, and now again, Krishna is talking about transmigration. So we definitely have to face reactions for all our actions. It's like, just like we place an order on Amazon or wherever, eBay or wherever it may be. Similarly, in this life, we are placing an order for our next body. How? By our actions. Every action has a reaction. There is no running out of it. But if one wants to lead a karma-free life, which means no more reactions, even while living in this body, that is possible. That's what we learn in chapter 3 and 5, where Krishna explains that if we perform a karma, it's not just karma or vikarma. If we perform a karma means we are performing our actions according to the instructions given by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And more important than that is that we are not aspiring to enjoy the fruits of our activities. You see, that renunciation has to be there, that just like Krishna says, that we are entitled, we should perform our duties, but we are not entitled to the results of our activities. See, it is this action and reaction, this karma is such an important subject matter that Krishna gave 2 chapters to it, chapter 3 and chapter 5. So it's important to understand how we should perform our activities. And for that, we need training, we need guidance, and we definitely need knowledge. You see, cannot act, whimsically, because if we act whimsically, then obviously the reactions are going to be accordingly. Now, when Krishna says that, different conceptions, they go to the next body, along with that, even the subtle body goes. So there is the soul, the super soul, the subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego, and our conceptions, they all go together into the next body. Subtle body also goes. So here the verse is talking about living entity carrying different conceptions to next body, just like the air carries the aroma. So very, very important to, contemplate on our actions. What kind of actions am I performing? Who am I associating with? What is the kind of food that I'm eating? Or, what kind of charity am I giving? What kind of austerities am I performing? All these, they fall in different modes: ignorance, passion, and goodness. You see, so important to contemplate on our actions. And also, if there is something that needs to be changed, then we should go ahead and do that. Get some guidance and make sure that we are able to even change our consciousness from bodily consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Then Krishna says that he will guarantee our liberation, which means we will come out of this cycle of birth and death that has been going on for a long time. Now, in the very next verse, Krishna talks about obtaining certain type of senses based on our past karma. So whatever senses I have now in this body is based on my past karma. You see, and all these senses, they are grouped with the mind, and then the living entity tries to enjoy these senses with the sense objects. You see, the body, the senses that we have today, is because of our past order, the order we placed online. Of course, not online, but the order that we placed was delivered in this lifetime. So now that we have particular type of senses and particular, consciousness and mind, all that together is trying to enjoy in this material world. So people are either living their lives according to the Bhagavad Gita, or they are just randomly living without any knowledge. So what is Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is an owner's manual for human beings, where Krishna is giving instructions how to live this human form of life. And when we can do that, then we will be able to purify ourselves. You see, we are spirit souls and we are pure because we are part of Krishna, right? Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are eternal parts of Krishna and we are pure, But after coming into this material world, in this material body, based on our association, based on whatever is around us, we get conditioned. In other words, Prabhupada calls it, we get contaminated. Let me give you an example that Srila Prabhupada gives. He says, the water that falls, from the sky, the raindrops, they are pure. But once they, come and fall in a muddy place, then it gets mixed with the mud and it gets contaminated. The color of the water changes. It becomes muddy. It's no longer pure. So we also pure spirit souls, when we come into contact with materialistic life, we get contaminated. So that is why in chapter 14, we learned how to transcend the three modes of material nature, how to remove the contamination. And Krishna tells, Mam Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samityatin Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. He says that those who engage in my full devotional service, he's not talking about part-time devotional service. He's saying full devotional service at once transcends the modes of material nature, which means when one performs full devotional service to Krishna, then one transcends and goes into the mode of pure goodness. And that is the liberated stage. Now, devotional service, according to Krishna, starts with Shravanam Kirtanam. Prahlad Maharaj taught this to us in Srimad Bhagavatam. Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravanam means first hearing. Kirtanam means chanting. Chanting what? Chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the Maha Mantra that Krishna gave us more than 500 years ago when he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, from all this, we can understand that it's important to purify the consciousness if it's not purified yet. Our consciousness, it gets affected with the association that we have. So we need to choose our association very wisely. We need to choose what we eat very wisely. We need to choose what we hear very wisely. You see, it's if we can somehow or the other focus our attention on these activities, then we will notice that we gradually start getting purified. The contamination is gone. Now, we've been hearing about contamination so much, so you may wonder, what kind of contamination? I am clean. I took a shower this morning. I don't have any dirt on me. What kind of contamination? Well, according to Bhagavad Gita, we have contamination in the heart, which is, maybe in a smaller degree or greater degree, but it probably is there, like lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, illusion. So these are actually the enemies of the spirit soul. So if we, focus on mantra meditation, when we chant, we are actually purifying the heart. and removing these contaminations. See, as I mentioned, Krishna says that all living entities are my parts. We are amshas, parts of Krishna, and so we are pure. But we get contaminated in this material world, we get conditioned, and so most people are not interested in, spirituality. Most are not interested in chanting. Most are not interested in spiritual knowledge at all. You see, according to the scriptures, Jivera Swarup hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. Jivera, we jivas, we living entities, our Swarup, our constitutional position is Krishnera, Krishna's Nityadas, eternal servant. That is our constitutional position, to be the eternal servants of Krishna. But once we came into this material world, we have lost the taste for it. We have forgotten. So Bhagavad Gita is helping us to revive our relationship with Krishna. You see, we understand that, okay, I am in this human form right now, but there is no guarantee that our next body is going to be that of a human being. Based on our actions in the past, we have this present body. Now, based on our actions at present, is going to decide our future body in the next life. Our actions will choose our next body. According to the Padma Puran, one of the Puranas, it is said that there are 8.4 million species of life, not population, but different kinds, different species of life. And it is so very, so precise, that it gives knowledge that out of these 8.4 million species, 3 million animal species, 2 million trees, 1.1 million insects, 1 million birds, 900,000 aquatics, and only 400,000 different species of human beings. You see, we are the minority. So if human beings don't use their philosophical intelligence for self-realization and make the wrong choice, then the human beings can go into the lower species of life, and then it's only through the evolutionary cycle that they will be able to come back to the human form of life. Now, Bhagavad Gita is helping us to understand everything that is necessary for our self-realization. It's giving us knowledge who we are, that we are the spirit soul. Why are we suffering? Because this material world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam, which means it is a place of misery and it is temporary. And it's explaining to us our original home, which is the spiritual abode. You know, a nice example Srila Prabhupada gives is fish out of the water. Now, we take the fish out of the water, we may give the fish $1 million home, a jaguar, a lot of, nice things to eat and jewelry and everything. Is the fish going to be happy? No, because the constitutional position of the fish is in the water. That is its constitutional position. So we are like fish out of the water. Our position is in the spiritual world. But now that we are here in this material world, we think that all these things are going to make us happy. A big home and cars and this and that is going to make us happy. But the real happiness is when the heart is purified. When we chant, we become happy and peaceful. You see, getting this rare human form of life is a great responsibility. It is not meant for eat, sleep, and be merry. That even the animals do. They eat, sleep, have babies, etc. But we need to go beyond that, and that is to take on spiritual knowledge and qualify ourselves for liberation, to go back to the spiritual world. You see, we are not human beings. We are spiritual beings right now having material experience. That is the difference. So it's important that we focus on spirituality also. Today's topic is every action has a reaction, and today's verse clearly explains this, where Krishna is telling Arjuna that transmigration is going to happen based on our actions. We will get the next body, and our different conceptions from this life we will take with us onto our next body. So it's important that we watch our actions, we purify our consciousness so that we become successful in this human form of life. So these are the two verses that I took today, verse number 8 and 9. And I am going to stop here now. If anyone has any questions or comments.